Thibault, can you explain the soil to us?
Well, the Saint-Georges, it's very interesting soil. It's more brown. You see the clay, but this texture is very interesting because it's a little bit like sand. And inside the Saint-Georges, you have a very specific type of stone called calcite. This calcite comes from the scratching of the fault between the two sides of the fault and create a sort of crystal of limestone. And this is very interesting to see that because this type of crystal appear more for 4 or 5 years now in my vineyard. Now it was a little bit more brown, and now in the vineyard you see something a little bit more white, a lot of white point. I like to say it's a sort of pearl of limestone, and this now it's a sign of movement in the soil. This movement comes from the work we do in the vineyard, but also all the structure and the texture of the soil come from also the different things happen in the soil, like the work of the worms, the different type of bug, bring all what they are inside, because when we make the plowing we can't go too deep, and we don't have to go too deep, because if we go too deeper in the soil we can change and break a little bit the natural organization of the soil, which is very important for the harmony of our terroir. And this type of different bug worms do this work and do a very nice plowing. Now we can see that it's clay, but we had some rain yesterday, and it's not sticky.
It's not sticky at all. It's really.
And it's like puddle.
Yeah.
And I've took this.
It's really almost sandy. It's
yes,
clay, but it feels sandy.
Yes, and it's very interesting also when you. I believe a lot about the analogy between the texture of the wine and the texture of the soil, and something is very interesting to do the same thing in the Saint-Georges. You take some earth like this, and you do it between your finger, and you feel something soft but a little bit abrasive, like this.
Yeah.
You do exactly the same in Chambol. It's something really more soft, and I'm sure there are a real analogy between the texture of the soil and the texture of the wine. And when you touch the herb, you can have an idea, just a little idea about what the wine could be.
So yes, in the Les Saint-Georges you have a bit more tannin, obviously.
A little bit more tannin, a little bit more grape.
Yes.
Now, for a few years, a little bit more verticality in the wine, maybe because the calcite come and are a little bit more close to the roots and offer a little bit more freshness in the wine and maybe more minerality.
You definitely had, I think, in the verticologist done, a lot of minerality on the finish, particularly in the more recent vintages, which really seem to stretch the finishes.
Yes, it tied a little bit the wine, exactly. And but this is what it's very interesting to see the evolution of the terroir since I've started in 2002, and the last vintage we have tasted 2015. The wine have changed. Maybe my vinification changed, but my opinion is the soil make more work that in terms of changement that what we can do during the vinification, and the changement come from what we can see here. And also it's very interesting when we walk in the vineyard on the rows, we can feel that the soil is a little bit more supple, like a sponge, and make also an idea of the life in the soil. If you have something too tight, compact, you can feel, and you have a sort of vibration of the soil, like boom, boom. And when you walk in supple, you have something soft, smooth,
and energetic. And maybe this is where the energy is coming from as well.
I'm sure, yes. And you feel that big difference. It's very interesting to see and to just have to take a little bit inside of what we have, the type of flowers, the grass, and also to smell it. It's so interesting to smell.
Oh, yes, I mean,
it smells something good. It don't smell like only earth. It smells something good. It smells something is alive. And this is now yesterday was 2 days ago. It was the first day of spring, and we feel that the spring is coming. There's a wake up, and we feel. Also the wake up.
It's lively, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. During winter, you take it smell less, and and when you smell less, the herbs say, "It's my rest. It's my rest. Leave me alone. I don't need you." Now, maybe a little bit.
I'm waking up. So if you had to describe Le Saint-Georges as a wine,
I think this is a nice body with good bones and with a big personality. But it's a wine you need to go to the wine more than the wine come to you. I like to compare my wine like some wine is on the earth side and some other wines are on the earthy side. I think Saint-Georges is on the earthy side, but more and more toward to something a little bit more close to the light and with something that will be more fruit and floral than before. It was more maybe earthy and spicy, and I think the wine is between two. I think the Saint-Georges it's a less tannic and structure wine of Nuit Saint-Georges. It's one of, I think it's the most delicate and sophisticated wine in Nuit Saint-Georges. We are in the south of Nuit Saint-Georges, and the south of Nuit Saint-Georges is famous for the one with a little bit more structure, more shoulder, big tannins. Is absolutely not the case for Les Saint-Georges. It's maybe you have the same quantity of tannins of another wine like a Didier or like Porret Saint-Georges, but it's really much more integrated in the wine. They are more in harmony. Exactly. A little bit. I think it's a wine. I like to say it's maybe a little bit more intellectual wine than some other Premier Cru produced in the south part of Nuit Saint-Georges. And this is always a terroir. I think it's a terroir which surprised me a lot in the next 10 years, because I'm sure that we'll have a little bit of changement, and now the biggest part of changement happened in the 10 years, in the last 10 years, with all the changement or organic and biodynamic, or so make a changement in the soil, in the vineyard, maybe in the wine, but it's hard to say. Organic and biodynamic make a changement, but I'm sure that's a part.
I mean, and the potential of the terroir is great. I mean, there is this feeling that maybe this should be a Grand Cru.
We work for it and to promote this wine for 10 years now, because we have started in 2007, and it's of course that's. If I've tried to promote and to ask this promotion in 2007, and I've asked to all the owner of Les Saint-Georges to, maybe it could be a good idea to promote Les Saint-Georges in Grand Cru, everybody say, yeah, it's a great idea. But it will be hard to do. Say, okay, but I'm still young, and I have a lot of time in front of me. The problem of Burgundy now, a lot of a good classification has been made in 1936, but we don't have to forget the moment of 1936 and the economic moment. It was just after the 29 crisis. It was during it was not a very good moment in terms of economy, and this is at the moment where we have created the Confrérie de Tastevin in 1934. It was to promote the Burgundy wine. 1936 was a classification, and for some reason, quite the same reason in Nuit Saint-Georges and in Meursault or Beaune, no terroir has been classified as a Grand Cru. And for me, if we have to classify one, it have to be Les Saint-Georges. Of course, I'm sure if we have to classify, to come back in 1936 and to make the classification of 3 or 4 Grand Cru in Nuit Saint-Georges, it will be Les Saint-Georges, Les Cailles, Les Vaucrins, I'm sure, without any doubt. And this is the free terroir around us. And but the INAO and some other people, because INAO, this is a wine grower, I think it's a little bit scary to open the Pandora box. Okay, if we say yes to one, we have to say yes. Exactly. And say, okay, but we just have to see the history. And not only a question of price, because one of the requests of the INAO say we want that if you want to ask, just to ask, to promote Les Saint-Georges as a Grand Cru, the Saint-Georges have to be a minimum of double the price that the average of the other Premier Cru produced in Nuit Saint-Georges. And is it normal to talk about the price or not? I'm not sure that we forget a little bit the quality of the wine and the history of the wine. I find a very old price list of my family, and the price list was price list from 1911 and sell 06, 7 and 8. And at this moment, it was before the classification. It was the first classification of Laval in 1855. Was validated by the Bonne Committee in 1961. And Saint-Georges is not Les Saint-Georges only, not Nuit Saint-Georges Premier Cru, it was Les Saint-Georges. And it was interesting to see in the past classification, like the best cru was classified as the name of the terroir, of the lieu-dit. And but we know also what happened in 1936 is because the négociant was a bigger buyer and the only buyer, and also the economic was very bad. And the négociant, the model of the négociant at this moment, we don't have to forget that it was a little bit like the champagne model. They produce a wine of cuvée, just a vin de nuit or vin de Beaune. It was not too much specific terroir, except some the best Grand Cru or before the Grand Cru. And the négociant say, do what you want, because the wine association of Nuit Saint-Georges want to classify Les Saint-Georges as a Grand Cru. And the négociant say, do what you want, but don't forget who purchased the wine. And at this moment where the economy was bad, I can understand the decision of the people. Say.
So is there any movement?
They have movement. All the owner of Les Saint-Georges want to classify. A lot of people just want to be to change, and also you see that in Pommard, les Rugiens Bas also want to promote. Marsanais with the Premier Cru, they have a movement in Burgundy, and it's I think a part of the classification of 1936 was good, but maybe not all, and it's not. I think what they have decided to do in 1936, why we don't have to evaluate. Two have evaluated in the last 50 years with Claude Lambray in 1982 and La Grand Rue in 92. And why Les Saint-Georges? Why not Les Saint-Georges? But it's what I say that I'm not hurry to change. I think also to talk about Les Saint-Georges, that Les Saint-Georges could be classified as a Grand Cru. A lot of people maybe take more interest to taste the wine because they have heard about this wine could be classified, and they promote a little bit the wine. That is I think this is also a good thing, because we talk a little bit more about Nuit Saint-Georges. Nuit Saint-Georges is very well known around the world, and when we talk about, we ask the people around the world what is the most famous appellation in Nuit Saint-Georges, in Burgundy, and a lot of people answer Nuit Saint-Georges, and after Gevrey-Chambertin. But also, we like to say in French is le parent pauvre, the poor father, the poor parents. It's this is it gives the name to Côte de Nuit, but also it just have a Premier Cru and Village, and the people don't know too much Nuit Saint-Georges as a very nice appellation with a very nice terroir. We have 44 Premier Cru in Nuit Saint-Georges, 300 hectares.
But that's largely because it was the négociant, wasn't it? It was very much.
Yes, you're right. But now
it's very different now.
Now it's very different, and also when you taste the Saint-Georges, Nuit Saint-Georges had a reputation in the past of big wine with the big tannins, and now for maybe 20 years now, the wine have changed a lot with more finesse and more elegance. And I like also to see and to compare a little bit like Nuit Saint-Georges sometimes like the Corton Hill, because the people have an idea about Corton with a big wine, big tannins, but I understand when I've produced my first Corton in 2005 that the Corton, the terroir where I produced the Corton Renard, for example, it was impossible to produce a wine with a big tannins. And I understand that the reputation of the Corton to produce some wine with a big body and big tannins come from the people produce the Corton, but not from the terroir. And it's why it's also the richness of Burgundy, because the terroir without a wine grower can exist. I like to compare our work like we are a musician, but we don't have to change a partition. The partition, this is a soul. The musician is us, but each musician can make a different interpretation. But if it changes one note, it changes everything.